Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, if you do enjoy the video that you came here to watch, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that little red subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. It really does help my audience grow. It really does help this channel grow. It means more than you realize. So go ahead, hit that little red button. Also, remember, full episodes of the Aaron Torres Podcast, wherever you download your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. Now, here is the video that you came here for.
But there was actually quite a big piece of recruiting news that dropped on Friday that we simply just haven't had the chance to talk about yet here on the Aaron Torres Pod. It came from the University of Kentucky, and I should kind of contextualize this past weekend. We had a bunch of those preseason events. We used to call them Midnight Madness. We don't call them Midnight Madness anymore, but Kentucky had their Big Blue Madness. Arkansas had an open scrimmage, a bunch of schools across the country doing a bunch of different things. Well, Kentucky had their Big Blue Madness, and they had just an insane visitor list come to campus to Rupp Arena for Big Blue Madness. Number one player in the class of 2023, DJ Wagner. Number two player in the class of 2023, Justin Edwards, who's already committed to Kentucky, friend of the Aaron Torres Pod, I might add. Number six player in America, Aaron Bradshaw, was on campus, as was Reed Shepard. A couple really good 2024 prospects as well. And so what I want to do now is talk about the big piece of news that came at Big Blue Madness. Because as I said, Aaron Bradshaw, the number six player in the high school class of 2023, 7'1" center from New Jersey, he made a very surprise commitment late Friday night when it came to college basketball. Aaron Bradshaw, number six player in America, drum roll please, he committed to, probably shouldn't be surprising, he was on Kentucky's campus, and he commits to the University of Kentucky, solidifying what is shaping up to be one of the great classes in the history of the John Calipari era at Kentucky. John Calipari has already gotten commitments from the number two player in the class, Justin Edwards, the number 9 player in the class, Robert Dillingham, Reed Shepard, a top 25 player whose father played at Kentucky, now has a commitment from the number 6 player in America, and Aaron Bradshaw. And I'd add, there is one big piece left to this class, which I think is going to drop here in the coming weeks. Let's talk about it all. First of all, I will say this. The Aaron Bradshaw news was legitimately stunning, okay? Kind of a strange recruitment for him. And listen, this happens in recruiting sometimes. As I always say, doesn't make him a bad person, doesn't make his well, whatever. The bottom line was this was a kid that seemed as though he was ready to commit back in July. All signs pointed towards Kentucky back in July. Then we find out that his mother really kind of just said, hey, Aaron, great name, by the way. She's got great taste in names, neither here nor there. But she said, hey, Aaron, I just think, this is a life-changing decision. Take some more time. Let's kind of really think this thing through before you make any decision. And so after that, at that point, Louisville's recruiting him. The G League Ignite program is in the mix. And of course, Kentucky is as well. And at the time, the belief was he's going to take some more visits in the fall. He's going to make his commitment in mid-November at the end of the early signing period. And none of it really kind of, none of it really sort of happened. So there was always this belief that, once he didn't really make a bunch of visits after he said he would, that it was going to maybe come a little bit quicker than anticipated. But even as recently as last week, I talked to somebody, somebody that's pretty smart on this stuff. And I didn't get the sense from them that there was any indication that this kid was going to commit. Only he does. And now he adds a fascinating piece to this 2023 Kentucky class and really the 2023-2024 Kentucky team in general. Because I do think when you look at Kentucky, and I'm not going to go crazy overboard breaking down depth charts, but you look at this Kentucky team, I do think there's going to be, this year there's actually quite a few players returning to Kentucky. I do think next year you're probably looking at some pretty significant roster turnover. I know there's some talk that Oscar Tshiebwe may return for yet another season because of NIL opportunities. I'll believe that when I see it. Not to say it can't happen, but I'll believe it. Same with Severe Wheeler, who will have probably graduated by that point, the point guard. You'd think Kason Wallace will go pro. You'd think Jacob Toppin would go pro. And there's 2 or 3 other guys that are kind of on the fence. And so now, with a 4-player recruiting class that features 4 top 25 players and 3 top 10 players, John Calipari and his staff can sleep at night, right? You have the point guard is set. Rob Dillingham, number 9 player in America, number 1 point guard in America, is committed to Kentucky. So that spot's good to go. Justin Edwards, I've mentioned him a few times, number 2 player in America, a wing. He's good to go there. Now you have not 1, but 2 Shot blockers in the low post. Aaron Bradshaw, as I said, a 7'1" player. I really, really, really like his talent. One thing about him, 7'1", but he plays hard from everything I've seen. Over the years, it's been kind of a talk of kind of improving his motor. Every time I've seen him in person, the motor has been great, but plays really hard, flushes everything at the rim, elite shot blocker. Oh, by the way, an improving jump shot. And I think that's important to note because Kentucky actually already signed an elite shot blocker in the class of 2022, who was originally part of 2023, Ugonna Kingsley. If you remember a few weeks ago, we talked about him. He was supposed to be a senior this coming season, decides to reclassify, decides to enroll at Kentucky. And the idea was it was almost Aaron Bradshaw insurance. We don't know if we're going to get this 5-star kid. So let's take this other kid. Let's bring him in. Let's either let him redshirt or really ease his way into college basketball. And he'll be ready to go for 2023, 2024. Well, now there's a very good chance that you got both of them. Now, one thing about college basketball, you never want to look too far ahead and project out rosters. But if you get both, you can't put a price on having 2 elite shot blockers, one a top 5 prospect, another who has a year of college basketball experience under his belt. I'm just telling you, shot blocking changes games. Look at what Duke was like last year with Mark Williams on the floor, Chet Holmgren at Gonzaga. You can't put a price on having 2 7-footers, which is exactly what Kentucky will have. And I really like how all the pieces have started to come together for next season, 2023, 2024. I would add, there is one very obvious piece that could still be coming that we need to discuss that I think is going to come here in the next couple of weeks. And that is DJ Wagner, the player who I just mentioned, is the #1 high school player in the class of 2023. And I'll just tell you this, nothing's guaranteed in recruiting, but there couldn't be more signs that it's ultimately going to be Kentucky. Now, we've talked about this kid a million times. Father played for John Calipari at Memphis. Grandfather played at Louisville. Grandfather gets hired by Kenny Payne, and we all thought it was a done deal to Louisville. Well, fast forward, and a couple things have changed since then. One, just all of the buzz and all of the momentum has gone towards Kentucky over the past 8 weeks or so, since kind of the end of July into August, kind of that end of the recruiting period. 2, and this is really important. Well, really 3 things. 1, he visited Kentucky this past weekend. He doesn't plan on visiting Louisville. I think that's a great sign since he's already visited both campuses. But 3, he signed an NIL deal with Nike. He is officially a Nike athlete as a high school basketball player going into college. Yeah, that's a great sign for Kentucky because at the end of the day, we've talked about this. I'm not saying it could never happen, but I just don't really see the scenario where a kid signs a deal with Nike as a Nike athlete and then goes and plays at another college. It's not what Nike wants. I'll be honest, I don't know it's what Louisville and Adidas want. Now, Kenny Payne might want it as the Louisville basketball coach, but if you're Louisville and you're one of the flagship Adidas programs, I don't know that the folks at Adidas are over the moon to have your best player wearing Nikes. And so to me, it doesn't officially eliminate Louisville, but it kind of sort of eliminates Louisville in this conversation. And so DJ Wagner, he's not really being aggressively recruited by very many others. I just think it's a matter of if not when this guy officially becomes a Wildcat, then you're talking about the top 2 guards in this class, basically. The #1 player, DJ Wagner, Rob Dillingham as well. The best wing in this class and the best shot blocker of this class. That is a heck of a place to start with this roster. And then you're obviously going to have 1 or 2 returnees, maybe a few more. You're going to add some plug and play transfers. That's going to be a really, really, really good team going into next year. In terms of DJ Wagner, I would think this thing is going to happen soon. I don't see why you drag it on. I don't think the family is about creating drama or anything around the recruitment. That's not what they've been like since this recruitment process started. I don't think it's who they're going to be going forward. So DJ Wagner, I would expect to commit here in the near future. I think he's going to be a Wildcat. And then we are talking about a historic class for Kentucky. We talked about this, by the way, in the summer, the potential for a historic recruiting run. So far, it has hit. Ugonna Kingsley commits for the class of 2023, then reclassifies to 2022. Justin Edwards commits. That's on top of Rob Dillingham. Now you get Aaron Bradshaw. Now you get DJ Wagner. Here, we don't officially have DJ Wagner, but I think we all think it's going to happen. So that's where we're at with Kentucky. That's where we're at with recruiting. I would add a few more thoughts just overall on Kentucky going into this season, but really looking at this recruiting class as a whole. One, here's another variable from Friday night that I don't think can go unmentioned. on top of having several elite recruits in the class of 2023 on campus, DJ Wagner, Justin Edwards, Aaron Bradshaw. You also had two of the top 5 players in 2024 on campus as well, Ian Jackson, a guard from New York, and Carter Knox, a forward whose brother, Kevin Knox, played at Kentucky. To me, that's important for a couple reasons. One, I don't claim to be a recruiting guru. I would think Kevin Knox, leader in the clubhouse, has to be Kentucky. But at the same time, why I think that's important is because, one, you already have a player that is committed on campus in Justin Edwards, really two with Reed Sheppard. But then also, you have a top 5 player in the senior class that commits on the spot. And you see how the fan base reacts. You see how the coaching staff reacts, how social media reacts. You think that doesn't play a role with those 2024 kids? So I think you just talk about a perfect scenario for Kentucky. This kid commits on campus. It's great for this coming class, but it's great for the following one as well. A couple more thoughts. One, shout out to the 2 lead assistant coaches at Kentucky that have been there now for a year, Orlando Antigua and Chin Coleman. I've talked about them a lot on this show. If you remember, these 2 guys got hired following the COVID season at Kentucky, or Kentucky was a disaster. The 2020-2021 season, Kentucky finishes whatever it was, 9-15, I think it was, missed the NCAA tournament. And when that season ended, John Calipari redid everything on his roster, brought in a bunch of transfers, went older, but he brought in 2 high-profile assistant coaches, Orlando Antigua and Chin Coleman, who were both working at Illinois at the time, and he basically handed them the keys in recruiting. And what I said at the time, I said, look, you're probably not going to see the impact of these guys on the 2022 class. 2023, 2024, 2025 is when these guys are going to make their hay. And that's exactly what they're doing. You get DJ Wagner, you're going to have the #1 class in America. And credit to those guys, right? I mean, this is why you pay assistant coaches big time money. They're probably the 2 of the highest paid assistant coaches in college basketball. This is why you bring them in. They're delivering on what's promised, which is bringing elite players and elite talent back to Kentucky. And finally, what I would say is this, and I know the non-Kentucky fans still listening are probably like, dude, I've heard this a million times with Calipari. Well, first of all, the last time Calipari had a class this good potentially on campus, probably I would say this is going to go up there with the 2013 class that had Julius Randle, the Harrison twins, Dakari Johnson, etc. Well, that class made 2 Final Fours, played for a national title in 2014, and had an undefeated regular season in 2015. So if the argument is that you hear this all the time with Calipari, this is the best class he's had since he went to back-to-back Final Fours in 2014 and 2015. But what I would also say is I have heard this buzz that this could be Calipari's last real run. Essentially, sign the #1 class in 2023. You'll have DJ Wagner, the son of your first one and done, DeJuan Wagner at Memphis, and then you close out your career and go out on a high. Because remember, part of John Calipari's contract that he signed that was deemed a lifetime contract a few years ago, there was a clause that after 2023, 2024, he could retire and get an administrative position at the University of Kentucky for the remainder of his life. And so I think a lot of people have kind of put 2 and 2 together, sign the son of your first great recruit, go out with a bang, go out after 2024. I'll just say I don't buy that story at all. I don't buy that narrative at all. First of all, Calipari said, like, I love doing this. I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. 2, anyone who knows John Calipari, spent any time with him, I can just tell you that is not a man that is built for retirement. He's a he's energetic, he's fiery, he's this, he's that, he's the other thing. I don't get the sense that he wants to step away. I don't get the sense that he's like Jay Wright that's burned out and wants to try other things. Even Coach K, I don't think Coach K really wanted to leave. I think he was just burned out after that COVID season when he announced his retirement. Roy Williams, I think, was ready to step aside. I don't get the sense that John Calipari is at all. But what I'll say is he's going to have a heck of a class in 2023, 2024 to make a run at a potential second national title. We'll see what happens here first. And but I don't buy that John Calipari is, of course, leaving the University of Kentucky after next season.